Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 40 of the Backyard Banter podcast. My name is Matt Harmon. We've been going through essentially like the who's who of the football writing industry, the fantasy football community, and talking to a bunch of different people to get their perspectives on how they got to where they are. Here we've got a guest that's, I would say, a little different. Maybe off the wall is even the better way to say it. Today we're joined by Uncle Chaps of great fame. I mean, really, this feels like the most celebrity we've had on the podcast so far. So, Chaps, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. You were definitely somebody that I highlighted as someone I wanted to have on the podcast. I don't know what, the perspective of the show has mostly been like, how did you get your job? How did you get that? I don't know what the hell we're talking about. How did you become, essentially the greatest fake reporter in NFL history? But we'll talk about your perspective nonetheless. But Chaps, I always kind of start the show asking the guest, how did you come to, get the bug for football, or how did you come to fall in love with the sport in general?
Oh man, as long as I can remember, football's been like a part of me. Some of my earliest memories growing up is sitting at my grandparents' house. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, so most people there are big Gator fans. But because anything my dad did, I wanted to be the opposite. So he was a big Gator fan, so I became a Florida State fan. And I remember sitting in with my family, like on Thanksgiving or whenever, watching Florida State games, and my grandpa, who's a Southern Baptist minister, being so irate at me because I would cheer when Florida State would score, and he would be so mad. And it was the only time that you would ever really see him get angry was when I would like clown his team in front of him and my dad, and they would just be so pissed, and it made me so happy to make them angry. So I guess from 5 or 6 years old on, football's been a part of who I am.
There's something about being the contrarian that I definitely appreciate, even if it's annoyingly so. Growing up in Washington, like the DC area, that was the one thing I was like, I'm definitely not going to be a fan of their professional football team, but I'm also not going to be the jackass like a Cowboys fan, but certainly Washington for a number of different reasons. But it's definitely interesting. So obviously, Jacksonville came to or the Jaguars came to Jacksonville not too long ago, but so I imagine that was kind of like a monumental moment in its fanhood as well.
Oh, man, yeah. Like when we were there in 93, 94, when the team was first announced, it was crazy, man, just how it overtook the city and just the buzz behind it was incredible. I remember wearing Jacksonville Jaguar shoes and to elementary school, just absolutely loving everything about the team. It was great.
Yeah, no doubt about that. It's so fun when the team kind of takes over a city. That's for sure. So I don't really know how to steer this part of the podcast because normally this is where I would ask the person like, how did you get the idea to cover the sport? But obviously that's not what you do, Chaps. But we'll just dig into your kind of life. So tell us obviously if people know that in the armed forces, let's dig into that a little bit. Just I guess what was the impetus behind that? Where did you get the idea to do that?
What was the question? It broke up.
Where did you what drove you to want to serve, I guess?
Okay. So a lot of people, I don't know if a lot of people know, but before I joined the Marine Corps, I was actually studying to be a pastor. Like being in the ministry and like Christian ministry was a huge thing in my family. Like a lot of guys did it. And my grandfather was a pastor for 60 years. And so I was actually in Raleigh, North Carolina at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. And I was thinking, I'm going to graduate school in a couple months, or in 2 years, I'll be 22 years old. And I'm going to be expected to lead people on matters of faith without really having any real life experiences. I'm not doing anything. So I'm going to be 22 years old telling guys that are in their 40s and 50s, like how they should live a moral life and like all these things. So I was like, well, I'm going to go get some real life experience and I'll take a break and I'll join the Marine Corps and I'll use that as a way to go and like kind of be a witness, I guess was my original idea. And then gradually throughout my time in the Marine Corps, my ideas of faith and religion started to shift and change. And which happens to people that go from being early 20s to in their 30s, like what they think about the world and their worldview changed, and mine changed completely. And so it ended up being that the reason that I joined the Marine Corps gave me more life experience than I could have ever dreamed, and it changed my entire outlook on life. So
Yeah, I bet that is something that a lot of people don't know about you as far as that you
yeah,
were
I
in
don't think you would
seminary
read
school.
my Twitter feed and assume, oh, that guy was probably going to be a pastor at some point.
So if you want to, if you're comfortable talking about it, I find that really interesting, just because I was actually like a religion minor in school, and
Uh-huh.
have just always been fascinated by, and I've gone through different periods of my faith as well. I don't really know what the hell to define myself as, but how did your perspective on faith change when you were in the Marine Corps?
I guess, and it's hard to like really pinpoint it. I've tried to do it before where you pinpoint. I guess it was just steady little shifts of the idea of Christianity where the only way to get to heaven would be through Jesus. And then you go to different countries like Iraq, and you go to Afghanistan or Djibouti, Africa, and you're seeing what these people are going through, and you think how narrow minded that really is. And you try to wrap your head around, like, how can a loving God send this person to hell for doing this? And so it just really kind of messes with you for a while. And I had tried to do everything that I could, and like saw all this bad things happening and tried to balancing out. And eventually I just came to the point where I don't even know the day or when it was that I just found myself not believing in anything. And I wouldn't say that I'm totally against religion. When we want to take our kids to expose them to everything, just to be better citizens of the world. So I'm not against religion by any means, but I just got to the place over probably the period of 5 or 6 years where I just decided that this isn't really for me anymore. So
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard when you see the world and you get different perspectives. It's hard to know like where you stand. That's for sure. It's just filled. It's a space that's filled with a lot of questions. I guess
yeah,
for me still, especially. But asking questions is certainly never a bad thing, I would guess. But I don't know. I guess we're all kind of working through that. But so in the Marine Corps, obviously you had a hell of a lot of experience that I certainly cannot identify with. But you probably learned a lot while you're over there, right?
oh yeah, no, for sure I did. A lot about who I was as a person and what my worldview was going to be. I'll tell you this: like, what the day that I got shot, it completely changed how I interacted with people who I viewed as being close with me, family members, everything. Um, Once I got to the stage of nearly dying, I thought about, is this person in my life because they make me better? Are they going to be a betterment part for me? Are they going to do things that enrich my life and the quality of my life? Are they going to help my children become better people? And if I came to the ultimate conclusion, still now I use this, if you're not going to make me better or make my family better, or I don't see you in the process of getting better yourself, I don't have any room for you to be in like my close circle. And I still do that now, and it's made my life much more happy. Like when I go home, I visit people that I want to, not people that I feel obligated to, and it's been really good for us.
Yeah, that's really key. Like prioritizing people, especially as you get older. I feel like that becomes more a part of your worldview, I guess. And I mean, for me, obviously, it's different. But yeah, like when I went back from my road trip across country, I think that was like the most frustrating part of like being, which is a stupid thing to kind of feel frustrated by. But it was like the most frustrating part was being home and being like, do I have time to see all these people? Who do I not have time to hang out with? Which seems so stupid, but it's a part of.
No, I mean, and people that haven't moved far away, they don't understand that struggle. And I would come back after living in Japan for 4 years, or being in Iraq, or being in Virginia, and come back to Florida. And I felt like the entire time I was on vacation at home, I was driving in between places. And eventually I just said, fuck it, man. Like, this is where I'm going to be. If you want to come chill, come chill. If not, I don't give a shit either. Like, if I can fly 18 hours, you can drive your happy ass 45 minutes. I'm not going to do it.
Right. That's so true. Like just being like, listen, I came all the way here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just drove from California. Can you drive to Fredericksburg or Stafford or something? Like
Yeah.
help me out a little bit.
Yeah, seriously. I'm racking up miles on this damn car, and I'm not trying to.
Yeah.
But I guess so. Obviously, the being shot a good story. Let's just tell that story for people that might not be familiar with it, even though this is like your 10th podcast appearance talking about it or whatever. But tell that story for people that might not be familiar with it.
All right. So my job in the Marine Corps was to be an explosive dog handler, and so we would go looking for IEDs essentially. We would look for IEDs or weapon caches, and we would do close quarters combat with raids and entry onto houses, just normal infantry stuff. And I was with 1st Recon Battalion, and we would take houses to get overwatch on the areas to look for possible IEDs or to get ourselves more land space is what you would call it. So where we were just occupying more and more territory, where we were trying to push the bad guys that were really in Fallujah at the time out of Fallujah and move them and separate their elements of power. Well, a lot of times when you do that, there's only certain houses that are big enough on high enough hills where you can have a lot of overwatch. And when you do that, you open yourself up to attacks as well. So some guys had dug in and crawled through canals to get us, and they surrounded our house. And I had just laid down after coming in like 12 or 13 miles. I don't remember how far exactly it was at this point. It would be actually next week. It'll be 9 years since it happened. So a lot of it's like, like you kind of, this is a good counterpoint. Like you kind of get to the point where in your mind things happened, but like trying to relay it in the exact way that it did without having any type of hindsight bias about what you did or how your memory has shifted. It's so hard because I'm like, fuck, I've told this story so many times. Like, has any detail changed? Because I want it to be like exactly the same, but it's hard to do that. So anyways, so the people had surrounded the house and they shot the house, and one of the bullets went through a window and hit me through my arm and spun me around, and I had to tie a tourniquet to my arm to stop the bleeding. And we were getting mortar fire too. They had brought mortar tubes and were dropping mortar rounds, which if you don't know what a mortar round is, kind of like a little bit bigger of a grenade. So those were dropping in on the houses, and you could hear it like shattering over the top of the house. And so I had to make the decision, did I want the helicopters to come now or did they wait? And I decided to wait, and I couldn't take morphine. So I went without morphine after getting shot for like 2 hours, and then eventually got surgery. And I decided to stay in Iraq instead of leaving early so I could be like in the command center, because you could see with drones over the top where your guys are going. You could see small heat signatures from IEDs. So I wanted to look and help talk to dog handlers that replaced me, like where to go, like what was the best route for them to get there and things like that, and just help do training.
It's intense. I mean, yeah, it's I don't know. I was listening to the second season. Excuse me. I was listening to the second season of Serial on my drive, which I know you have a lot of thoughts about that whole situation in general, and it's definitely not a clear cut thing at all. But just listening to it, the one thing that I took away from it the most was like, holy shit, I have no like empathy with it. I have no way to relate to this story. Like I feel like my life is just so cushy after listening to that, I guess.
And I do too now. Like when I hear about stories of like my friends are still going over, and like I just saw one dude, he's going on like his 10th deployment to Afghanistan. I'm just like, God, dude, like I can't imagine like with how much I only did one deployment, like how much that really must affect your mentality. I mean, you're talking about 7 months out of every year for 10 years. I mean, that's just, it's insane. Like,
yeah.
So I mean, I feel like I'm so far removed now, and I tell this to my wife, like, I feel like legitimately I've lived 3 lives. I had my Southern Baptist life of where I was doing like ministry stuff. And then I had my Marine life, and now I have life as Chaps and like dad. So like I've had like 3 legitimate lives before 35. So
yeah.
It
No,
doesn't, doesn't even feel like me anymore. Like that, the
right.
war side doesn't even feel like who I am.
No, I can kind of relate to that too, and I feel like when you have like a big, like just cataclysmic sort of life change, or I don't know, when you have some of those things that take place in your existence, you do feel like you've lived two lives. Or three in your case. Like I feel like that for different parts of my story as well. But I think the one thing I'd like to kind of dig into too, especially with your service, was like the dog relationship, because obviously I'm a dog person. My
Yeah.
stupid dog is here, running around making a lot of noise right now, which is slightly annoying. But what was the relationship with the dogs like?
You know, it was awesome. I would see guys at work that were like my counterparts, same rank and same time and experience, and they'd be throwing 60, 70-pound bags on and going for 10-mile walks for the day for their job, or going out to the range. And then they like, because I was an MP too, or they would be out on a gate like checking IDs, and I would go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, and my very first course of business at work was to feed my dog. Like, how many people, that's the start of your work day, is to go grab some food, bring it to him, give him some fresh water, let him eat, take him out, let him do his business. And then your legit job for the next hour and a half is to toss a ball or go for a run or something like that with the dog. Like, to start your day as a Marine, and your real responsibilities for the first 2 or 3 hours is to exercise and feed a dog. That's pretty damn dope. So then we would get him and put him up. And then in the afternoon, we would go out and go train to find bombs or drugs or whatever dogs we were training that day. So all we would do is, it's basically detection for bomb dogs and drug dogs, is playing hide and go seek with the dogs. Like, we're hiding the bombs inside a car, or we're hiding the drug material inside of a car, going through a parking lot full of cars and looking for the little stick of C4, or going through an entire barracks and looking for half a pound of weed or some cocaine or meth or whatever we're looking for. So it was basically playing hide and go seek with the dog, just wearing a military uniform and having like military customs and courtesies, but you're just playing with the dog all day. So it was fantastic. So to answer your question about the relationship, you do get incredibly close. Like, for example, when I got shot, it was very difficult for the corpsman to get to me, because Psycha, my dog's name was Psycha. Psycha knew something was wrong. Like, he could tell, like, Dad's bleeding shit, like, so and he's trained to attack too. So he is sitting like real aggressive posture, growling his ass off as soon as anybody is coming close to me, because he doesn't want anybody to hurt me. So
Right.
like, I'm telling him, stop, like giving him the commands to stop, and like pulling a ball out of my pocket that I would keep to give to somebody else to like distract them, to tie him up into a corner so they could work on me some, like they could do initial stuff. So yeah, you get really, really close, and their instincts to protect the handler is phenomenal. I mean, there was times that we had all the nice equipment in the world. We had the thermal vision, we had the night vision, where we could see the thermal vision through the scopes of our weapons. And sometimes we still couldn't pick up what was behind the bushes, but Psycha almost always could. Like, if we would be coming down, he would alert and turn his body like sharply to tell me that somebody was there. And we would see like some kid in the river at night, like using the restroom in the river, that we didn't pick up. And just things like that. You don't know how often that kind of stuff can really save your life. So the bond that we had with a dog was invaluable. They're an invaluable piece of equipment.
No, yeah, that's for sure. It's so fascinating, just the connection that you can make with an animal, and especially dogs, like, because they're just so stupid loyal.
Yeah.
Even even to a fault, like in your specific example. So I definitely, for selfish reasons, always want to hear good dog stories. That's for sure. But
so
Chaps, it's kind of
one good dog story that I've never told. So when I got back to Japan after leaving Iraq, Psycha, I was getting ready to also do a permanent change of station to Virginia, So Saika, the dog belongs to the base, like he doesn't go with the handler. So if I'm leaving, Saika stays there in Japan. So I had been back for like 3 weeks, and Saika had his new handler already. So we're out in this big field, and the new handler and Saika are practicing doing aggression training. And Saika is like midway getting released to go attack the dummy, and I'm probably 100 yards away, and I just go, and like he knows the distinctness of my voice and immediately breaks off from what he's doing and like does like a full bodied sprint like over to me and like jumps up. It was really awesome, man. And the new handler's like, come on. He's like, what am I supposed to do? He's like, you guys have been together forever. And so he's like trying to call Saika back, and Saika's just like, fuck you, dude. Like, no way. He's like, this is my dad, bro. Like, my dad called me. I gotta go see what's up.
That's awesome. That's the like stories like that are just kind of the just epitome of what dogs are, and I love that. It's so cool. Like just that, gotta see what my person needs. Gotta see what my person is,
exactly.
What they want. I don't know. It's so awesome. I could literally sit here and just talk about dogs for the rest of the podcast, but I do want to get into you, Chaps. I mean, we've talked about like that part of your life, the first two segments of your life, but let's dig into the current one, the third thing. And like honestly, Chaps, I was seeing the other day, like you have 20,000 Twitter followers. Is that like not the fucking craziest thing you've ever seen?
Yeah, I don't know where the turn really happened, because like now I see guys that used to have me blocked, like some of the bigger named like football writers that used to have me blocked, and now they follow me and interact too. And it's almost like there was sort of an like I think it was when I finally got Schefter on ESPN, and Jay Glazer was really cool about it. I think that was like a huge shift. And Dan Carson's article too, I think, where they explained like a little bit of my background. But there was a big shift somewhere where it was like, Chaps is just a troll. He's kind of an asshole. And then people were like, oh, maybe he's not that bad after all. Maybe we take ourselves a little bit too seriously. But there was a big shift, and I don't know when exactly it happened, but I think that was about the time.
Yeah, there's a couple points that you made in there that I definitely want to hit on and dig into a little bit. But let's start at the grassroots portion. So, like, how the hell did Uncle Chaps become Uncle Chaps?
Well, my name came from Chaps McNeely was a drinking name that I had when I was in the Marine Corps. So we would go out and we would use fake names in case one of us got in a fight or got a little bit too drunk, where if we were using our Marine name, like our actual names, the very first thing that they would see was that we were active duty Marines, and they would contact our command, and then we would get in trouble. Right. So we would just try to keep it like as low key as possible. So then when I got a Twitter account, like I just went with that name because I didn't want to use my name because I was still active duty, and I didn't want to piss somebody off and then them contact my same thing. They didn't contact my command. I tried not to use my real name on social media. But Jaguars Twitter, like I was really involved with that at first. I mean, I just got in, started following like Alfie Crow and Jeremy Nettles, who's Teal Talk, and Noobs and Dilla, and just Andy Willis, like a bunch of those guys that are like big names within Jaguars Twitter. And I saw some of those guys, Noobs, Dilla, and Willis, they would change their names. Like Andy Willis was the original like Adorn Schefter. Like, so he was like one of the first like to really do it. And they would do that kind of thing all the time. And we would just do it with local Jaguars beat writers just to fool like other Jaguars fans. So like Gene Fournette or Vito Stellino, or like we would use those guys. And then I used, I don't remember what it was, but I used, I think, Rap Sheet, and it took off. And then it just kind of became like a part of my persona somehow. I don't really know how, but it became, I mean, because I have like 117,000 tweets, and not most of them are like that, you know, but that would be the first thing that people point to is like, oh, this is the guy that fakes people out on tweets.
Yeah, I'm trying to even think like when I first noticed you were doing, because you and I have followed each other for like 3 years now, which is, it's just also like kind of mind blowing sometimes when you think back, like, holy shit, I've been on Twitter and doing this bullshit, whatever we're doing for a long time now. But no, it's so I don't even really know when you started doing it either. But the thing I think and some people like completely don't understand this perspective, but I don't find the fake accounts like annoying, stunning to me, and maybe it's just like a personal, like we have like a relationship, so maybe I'm just biased, but like you've always been way better at it and more entertaining at doing it than the other accounts.
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, it's strange like that. I think what's better about mine is the interaction that comes afterwards, like how you play with the people that are responding to it, or the angry people are the best.
Yeah.
So if you play up that part, I think that's what made, I guess, mine a little bit different, was how I reacted to the people who were faked. I think that's what people enjoy more so, is not the fake tweet itself, but the aftermath of the fake tweets, the responses. Like, for instance, the Myrtle Beach picture, or really the Cleveland picture. When people are like trying like so desperately to show how smart they are, like, no, that's actually not Myrtle Beach. No shit, right, dude. There's like 1 million people in the street, and there's like 20,000 people that live in Myrtle Beach. Like, it's clearly not a celebration for Coastal Carolina winning the College World Series, but people want to show how smart they are. And it's usually the dumbest people who do that, or they're having a really dumb moment. And that's one thing that I've really enjoyed lately, is really coming to grips with how people just constantly want to show, I know this information and no one else does. You know, like I really cracked the code that everybody is wearing garnet and gold for the Cavaliers, but it's not actually Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, what was it recently? Like somebody embedded one of your tweets about like what was it, in an article?
For Complex Sports. Yeah.
Yeah, what was it for the Spurs head coaches?
Yeah, for Tim Duncan retiring.
Oh, right. Yeah, I saw that, and I was just like, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what to say. Just God damn it, Chaps, like this.
And I wrote the sports editor for Complex, and I was like, man, I'm so sorry. Like, it was just so unintentional, you know. I'm like, dude, I legit felt bad, because the editor there is a really cool guy, and it's like that article is going to be really embarrassing. But luckily, it blew up fast enough where people not on Twitter didn't see it, so it was gone pretty quickly. Oh
God, it was so funny. And let's just dig into like some of the greatest hits of Chaps. Like for me, because I like kind of experienced it firsthand, I always go back to like the first one that just like actually killed me was when Handle. Because I don't know, like I've told you this a little bit, and I've told other people this too, but it was honestly the most hilarious thing. Cause like at that point, I feel like a lot of people in the office really didn't know who you were or what you did, and like when you got the NFL handle for the Des Bryant thing, so you just like you basically like a super innocuous like Des Bryant's gonna be practicing this week or whatever, and the like at NFL handle with like 2 million something followers retweeted it. It's like because I looked at it like because I was on Twitter at the time, I was like, oh my God, that's Chaps that they just retweeted. And like people, and it was like because when things happen in the newsroom, it's like it really is like a progressive wildfire, I guess. And finally somebody realized like, it's not rap sheet, it's fake account, and like people are yelling across the room. Like Andrew Siciliano like goes, "Who the hell is Uncle Chaps? Like take that tweet down." I was honestly having like a heart attack. It was so, because like I said, I've followed you for years now, and like all these other people are like, "Who's Uncle Chaps? Take that tweet down." So that was probably that one will always be a peak moment for me.
And you know, when that incident happened, I thought someone had changed their handle to the NFL Shield and did their handle as like the National Football League and did like a screenshot and send it to me. And then I looked more, I was like, oh my God, it's the actual one that did it. And then my mention started blowing up. I think Sigmund was the first one that told me that you had relayed that story to, and we were both laughing about that one. That was a good one. Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, I still have the screenshot of like when I saw it and just clicked it on my phone real quick.
And I think you touch on a good point there, that it kind of, it's almost like the community has embraced it, where like everybody wins. Like if a bunch of people get fooled, like there's so many people now like within our Twitter circle that are like, yeah, we did it again. Because like, you know, like people retweet it on purpose. They know at this point that it's me, but they're like, I want to add to the fire. And it's like we're doing it collectively together. And so
yeah, I always hesitate, like, because I remember one time you got me during the preseason. It was something with the 2015 preseason. Like it was some like Michael Bennett's traded from the Seahawks is traded to the Jaguars. And I quote tweeted that and like, ah, son of a bitch, because it's kind of like it's a good moment for yourself to be like, you know, because that's the other thing too. It's like I don't feel bad for anybody that gets Chaps, because just look at the damn handle. You know, take that extra 2 seconds, like to not hit the retweet button right away. So I don't know. I sometimes like debate, like, do I want to tweet Chaps and add to the fire, or do I just want to let it happen organically and kind of watch from the sidelines? That's always. But so the ESPN one. Let's talk about that, because that's obviously a huge Chaps moment. And I have to say, like, I kind of missed out on that. I was taking a post burrito nap during the ESPN.
You know, I honestly did too. Like I missed a majority of it because I was like because usually I would only leave the fake handle and picture up for like a minute or two, maybe. Well, my daughter had been called from school that I needed to go pick her up because she was sick. So I had just changed it, and then my phone rang and I had to go pick her up from school. So I ended up leaving it for like 20 or 25 minutes up. And when I got out of picking her up from the daycare, I looked at my phone and I had so many text messages and direct messages and people like, you're on ESPN. And I was like, what in the hell is going on? And so then I figured out what happened, and I was like, oh my God, man. Like, and then I turned on ESPN and saw some of the backlash that how mad Schefter was. And that made it, because I mean, at this point now, I don't even really like to do sports, because it's kind of like you said, with a lot more followers, it's a lot easier like to have that information go spread quickly. So it's not even really like that fun anymore. But that one was perfect just because of Schefter's reaction. It made it so good. That he was just so mad, and
he was so mad.
His face was so red.
Oh, he was furious. And it's like, especially working at NFL and like seeing how things go the network side, like my one thought throughout was like, how the hell did nobody flag that like that? Because you know,
that's why I didn't feel bad. Like you have, especially at ESPN, how many interns, how many social media people, how many reporters on the desk, the person that's putting it up on the teleprompter, like so many ways to check, and you don't. Yeah. And then it made it perfect because he explained the process of what was going on behind the scenes, clearly showing that he had no fucking idea what was actually happening. And I like to think that I saved the Jaguars from making that bad contract anyway. Like I like to think that I saved us, and because without that we probably don't get Ramsey and Jack. So like looking back, I think it was probably a good thing.
Yeah, you're basically a hero essentially for
yeah
that.
I mean, I don't wear a cape, but it's as close as it gets. Yeah.
It was like that's the thing to me. How did nobody just like take the glance? You know, the little like right, just that's it. That was mind blowing.
I don't know either, man. Like I try to trace it back. Like when one really goes popular, like I try to trace it back to who was the retweet that led to that has like the most respected name, and I think that one was Michael Wright, who covers the Spurs now and used to cover the Jaguars and covered the Bears for ESPN Chicago. So I think it was him. Like that was because he retweeted it pretty fast. So
yeah, right. Like but you were saying about like the Jaguars were actually going to make that contract, and then they didn't essentially.
Yeah, and I think that because Tony Khan tweeted at me like, "You might think you're helping Chaps, but you're not. Trust me, you're not." Like so I'm thinking that they were like pretty deep in, and then maybe New York saw it because I mean, you know, a lot of the teams have NFL coverage on. They have NFL Network or ESPN, especially on those busy days, and maybe one of the Giants happened to see that and they upped their offer and called at the last minute, you know, like to try to get in there because the number that I reported I thought was ridiculous because I have also learned that the higher the contract or like the more severe something is, the trade, the faster people are to retweet it because they're like, oh my God. And they hit that button real quick, you know? So I'm thinking, because what they actually signed him for I think it was like 10 or 15 million more total contract than what I had even thought would have been insane to sign.
Yeah. Oh, it was atrociously high. And that's the good point. Like probably the more like outlandish, but not too outlandish that your tweet is, it'll get. So that kind of is like the art of it, right? And there's different ways like each reporter tweets, and I've heard you talk about that before too. Like you have to take that into account as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because people will pick that up. You like the syntax and how they put it together, and the choppiness of it, or how if they use hashtags, if they don't use hashtags, because you see it all the time, and you want to make it as innocuous as possible, I guess, to fool somebody. And that's what makes like the political season this time hard, because you can almost not put anything so ridiculous about Donald Trump. And how do you satire that? Like at this point, like what do you do? Like today he had 2 misspellings of waste and there. Like, how do you satire that appropriately and well? Like you can't, I feel bad for the guys at SNL, because doing a satire in this political season, you almost have to go the opposite way, like, and make Trump to be like some super serious, like no personality dude. Cause you can't out Trump, you know?
No, he is a true like parody of himself.
I don't know if it's a word, but he's unsatirable.
No, it's a challenge for you. You know, you gotta rise to the occasion. I think one time, this is a really funny thing. Like watching your account go through the transformation is hilarious, because I don't know what, like, I was watching you like go like become Hillary Clinton one night, and I'm like, oh my God, he's about to do it. I don't even know how it happened, but I think like I just happened to click on your profile and like saw that your avatar was Hillary Clinton. I was like, oh shit, it's coming. But your name was still Chaps. I was like, oh no, something's about to happen. Like watching you go through, it's really funny. But so yeah, like you mentioned, what's next? What's the next for what's your next white whale after kind of conquering the sports world, like essentially?
Calling the presidency for the wrong candidate, maybe. That's about. I don't really know, man. Like I told some other people, like I think I'm done with the changing the avatar and everything for the sports world. Just because it gets to a point like it's not very fun for me anymore. And honestly, it destroys my mentions for the entire day. So if I want to talk to somebody, like talk to my Twitter pals, it's harder to, because my mentions just keep going and going and going. And it's gotten to the point where it's almost annoying for me to do that.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe my account will take a turn, but maybe not. Who knows? I'm really liking doing jokes about poop still. So that'll be a continuous part of the brand. Like poop jokes will always be there.
Well, thank God. I think that I guess what's funny to me is just how people react to it. Like you said, that's because it's so, whether it's like the Uncle Chaps or Crying Jordan, you know, like that was another thing too. Still pro Crying Jordan. They just have to be better. Like they have to be really creative. Like you can't just throw up the Crying Jordan like app and throw it on somebody's face. Like you can't Crying Jordan my dog when he's at the Grand Canyon. Okay, that's not that's not clever.
Right.
It's got to be good.
Yeah, I agree. Like the one where they made the 17th hole at the Masters, where that was amazing. One of the best ones ever.
Yeah, that was good. Another good recent one was like the San Jose Sharks, like when they actually that was a really good one. Yeah, there's still some good ones. I was like I got Matt Franciscovich, my coworker, threw Crying Jordan on me when I was holding up my horse speed snack that I eat, like this like bullshit little rice thing that I eat during the day to sustain myself while they keep me chained to my desk at NFL. And I was like, you really should, like, he threw the crying Jordan face on me. I was like, you really should like crying Jordan each individual pellet in there, because that would have been funny. Like, there's still, you still can do it. You just got to work a little harder at it.
Yeah, the effort has got to be there. Especially with the app, it became a lot easier. So you just, it's a cheap laugh if you don't do it. Otherwise, you got to go out. Like, I was talking to my wife the other day about that it's the obvious joke that's what's really funny to see now for me, is how many people will make the same exact joke in response to one of my jokes. Like, I love it so much. Or like how many times Cecil the Lion is mentioned like to me a day. It's just incredible.
Oh my God.
Like the amount of like I see probably 60 to 70 links of Cecil the Lion tweets every day still. And I think I will for the rest of my life. Like, I really will never forget Cecil the Lion at this point.
Right, you actually can't forget at this point. For all the fake remembrance.
Never forget, because I absolutely will not. I'll be on my deathbed probably like, there goes Chaps. Now I can finally see Cecil. Like, that'll probably be my actual like obituary, like everything else I've done in my life, but I'll be tied to Cecil the Lion at my death.
Yeah, so I mean, you have like several. Obviously, the fake reporter thing was probably what was your rise to power. But there were several other like, just there are so many other little side jokes now at this point. Even like smaller ones where you say like, I have no tweets for you at this time, or like, please do not at me during the following months.
Yeah.
I don't know, that shit's so funny. Like, it's so funny to me. So what's like of all the side jokes or whatever, whether it's Cecil the Lion or now you're on the gorilla thing. I don't even know what you're doing there. But like, what's your favorite like side bit, I guess, or maybe your three favorite?
I really like the National Coffee Day is one of my favorites for sure. Like, every day, I think I went back and counted. I think it was like 60 something days in a row I did National Coffee Day, and that was. I still get National Coffee Day tweets now. That was a really good time, because it got to the point where I like the evolution of a joke where it's funny and then it's played out and it's not funny anymore. And then everybody knows that I know that it's played out and not funny anymore, but I'll still do it. And so then it gradually becomes funny again. Like, but you really have to eat it for those like 40 days where I just know people are like, fuck, man, again, like National Coffee Day again. And then they don't and then it just keeps coming. And then I think at least it does for me. I don't know if it does for other people. It becomes funny again. So National Coffee Day is good just because it was such a long played joke. Like, it took so long to develop, which I'm happy that I stuck with it. That one, I get some really, really good ones. Do not at me when I'm doing this. One guy tweeted me a picture or direct messaged me a picture of him in the labor and delivery room with his wife, and you could almost see like half of the baby like coming out of his wife. Like, do not at me while my wife's giving birth. And I'm just like, Jesus, dude. Like, that's going a little far, man. So the do not at me one is one of my favorites right now too. So I'd have to say those two off the top. And Cecil is always going to be there just because so many people like it.
No, that one's just hilarious. Like, the pictures that you like put of him like in the clouds or whatever. I don't even know that like kills me. Just, I mean, it's so.
The breakup on the plane. The breakup on the plane was a good one, all timer too, because people would.
It's so
like,
bad.
They would tell on me constantly, like every other day. Like, I would be getting told on to the girl who originally tweeted it, and I'm like, I don't care, man. Like, it's about the tweets. Like, everybody saw that original tweet and they know that it wasn't me. But again, I love it when people have to show how smart they are. And I'm like, no, this is actually new. And then somebody would tweet me like, they're like, no, it happened a year ago. And they'll link me in the article and I'll be like, well, you photoshopped that article. So it just like keeps going and going. And then And then I like it when I can like kind of draw back and everybody else in like that follows me will kind of take over of like talking to the person and be like, no, that's actually new. Like I'm with him now, and they'll develop like a story themselves of how they were with me when it was going on and how
it's when you can get like everybody in on the joke.
Yep, the snowballing jokes are definitely the best ones.
Yeah, that's totally fun, and I do like during the NCAA championship, like when you did the like this team can take solace in the fact that this is their campus with the beaker, because like
because that was just so stupid, man. Like Gulf Coast College like was really like, well, we just lost the Sweet 16 after being like a 15 seed for the first time getting here. But at least we can go back to the beach tomorrow. Like they're really thinking that. Like that team didn't care. It was just such a stupid narrative for so many lazy sports writers to have that they're in a good location. They must not care about actually winning the tournament. Like, come on.
Right. Man. Oh yeah, it's so dumb. But like the fact that you have I think it was around the fifth one. Like for every team that lost, you would tweet it out. I remember saying to Alex, I was like, God damn, that is just a ton of commitment to something so stupid. You're really an example of perseverance, Chaps. That's for sure. So I don't know, and kind of what we were mentioning earlier. Like my favorite is just the people, like the way it reveals things about people, like the reaction to it. Like because if there's one thing that I think has been said on this podcast several times, it's like don't take yourself seriously. Like I know Eric says it best, like just take your work seriously, but not yourself. And I think the way you are intertwined in our community is a really important thing, even if people don't notice it.
And it's actually now, I mean, I can't say who yet, but I actually just got hired to do more like fantasy football stuff for a company and have some other stuff in the works now that I'm done with school. So I hadn't really been looking for a job. So maybe I'll be able to come back next time and talk about how sticking to your guns and developing your personality actually works out, because there was times where I thought like maybe I should shift to be more serious, but I didn't do it, and it's paid off now. So it's pretty cool to have the opportunities are coming. And I know like people that are listening to yours, like how do you develop your own, like you did, you were yourself, and there's so many guys that have gotten opportunities just by being yourself. You can't really be anybody else. You can't develop. You're the only one that's going to do reception perception. Like you got to find your own little niche. And mine was telling poop jokes and like trying to make people laugh and occasionally talking about football. I think I have, if you look like on the Twitter analytics, 96% of my followers would fall under NFL fans. And I rarely talk about football like on Twitter. And those are some of my favorite comments when I actually do say something like a serious football comment. Somebody be like, what the hell is this? Like an actual football opinion.
Oh yeah, that's the best. And so wait, have you cleared it with NFL.com that you'll be writing somewhere else?
Oh yeah, I didn't sign a non-compete, so it's totally fine.
Okay, that's good. Because there are certain HR violations we can or can't do. But no, that's another thing too. Like that's hilarious that some people actually think that you're an NFL employee, and like when they'll add the NFL handle and be like, oh, this person needs to be terminated.
Yeah, that was a story that Big Cat from Barstool he tweeted out that El Prez was listening to my podcast, and he was like, who's this dude that works for the NFL that doesn't ever talk about football on his podcast or talk about anything about football on his Twitter or like anything that he ever writes? And so Big Cat was like going through like all the writers, like just pulled up the masthead and was like going through all the writers at NFL.com. He's like, no, it goes by like pork chop or something. And he was talking about me. He's like, yeah, man, like the people that think they'll tweet the NFL like, I can't believe you have this guy working for you, and it's just so great.
Incredible. People are just beautiful, insane. That is great, and like just kind of winding down here, Chaps. Like I don't know. It's so funny to go through your entire persona. Like I remember tweeting at you like when I was back home. I went out to dinner with my mom and her boyfriend, and like trying to explain Chaps to them. It was honestly like I was like I don't even know where to start, guys. And they were but they loved it. Like and they're I don't know. They're old and lame. Like but they thought everything I was telling them was hilarious.
And that's why it's hard to like explain, like even when you asked me earlier, like explain it's like really difficult, like even for me, and I do it. Like it's hard to explain what, like, I don't know what I like kind of joke about everyone, but in a nice way. Like I try not to be a dickhead, I think that's a big part of what makes my type of trolling a little bit different is I don't try to make people the butt of a joke really. So
right.
It's hard to explain.
It's never mean spirited too. Like, and that is obviously another thing we talk about on this podcast all the time. Like, don't be an asshole, And I would say like for all the jokes that you do, you're never like actually a dick to somebody. You're a good
I think
dude,
I troll I troll the person even if I am trolling somebody else. I troll them in a way that I'm pretty confident they're never going to be aware that I am trolling them, where they leave the conversation thinking that they were right, which is the best. Like they're like, well, I own that dude. I'm like, yeah, man. Oh yeah, you did.
You got me. It's incredible. So yeah, like I said, kind of winding down here a little bit. Some of the more normal questions that we ask on the podcast. Like, is there anything, Chaps, like that you see in the community? Because, like I said, I view you as an incredibly important part of it. Is there anything that you see, on Twitter in the industry that you don't really like?
I think that it's actually gotten a lot better over the last year or so. Like there was a time probably a year and a half ago where it seemed like it was constantly arguing. Like it was almost becoming to the point where you had to argue yourself to get notice. Like people were adding somebody so they could prove how smart they were about this individual statistic. And I think a lot of that is kind of going away, or at least I've unfollowed the right people where that's kind of going away. I would like to see less arguing and appreciating others' thoughts on the idea. Like you can have a difference of opinion without being an asshole, like you said. And I don't think there's why you need to fight with somebody to the point where you're getting angry over a football decision or an opinion is pretty ridiculous to me. So the less of that we see, I think that we'll be better as a community. Enjoy it as a game. Like I mean, I do like to joke around and say that football is not a game, but remember that it is, and just have a good time with it, man. Like joke around with your friends online, throw around your fantasy football ideas, and have a good time with it.
No, for sure. That was one thing on Friday. Like I got in a big discussion about Todd Gurley as a top as a first round pick or whatever in fantasy, and I don't really think he's one that I'm comfortable. Like my point was like I'm just not comfortable with it. But the whole time getting people like kind of. I would say that I elicit a lot of positivity on Twitter, which is great. People just kind of debating with me about it, not like in a mean-spirited way. And like at the end of all these discussions, I'm just kind of like, yeah, I mean, look, if that's the way you think, like, sure. It's not something I'm going to like. I think feel so strongly about this.
Yeah, like you're knocking on their door, like you son of a bitch! I told you not to get girly. Oh, yeah, right. Totally got your ass, bitch.
Yes. Right, and like how stupid. Like I think about that sometimes actively, like how stupid that would sound if I actually, behave that way. It's just don't. Yeah, like you said,
like that's what. Like I used to give a lot more football opinions on Twitter, and like you would get like I'm sure you do a lot. Like a year and a half later, like if you were wrong about somebody, and they look it up, and they're like, well, it looks like you missed the boat on this one. You're like, Jesus, dude. Like that's what you spent time doing right now was looking up my opinion of what I thought Eric Decker was going to do in 2014. Like you're really doing that with your life.
Yeah, seriously, get some perspective here.
You really nailed it, man. He got 3 more touchdowns than I thought he was going to get in 2014. You really showed my ass.
Yeah, right. Like I'll be sure to retire now. My career is finished. It's ridiculous. So we kind of mentioned a little bit, or you kind of mentioned a little bit earlier about being yourself if you're trying to find a way into this space. If there are any other like aspiring writers listening, or just people that want to gain some sort of place in the community, what would be one of your biggest like piece of advice, I guess?
I find it weird when people will like try to get you to notice them by being rude. Like they'll like comment about like they'll take something and you're like, that sucks. Like, yeah, I notice you, but I immediately mute you. I don't even block you at this point. I want you to scream into the abyss and not even know that you even affected my daily thought. You know, like the mute button is a beautiful feature. So if you're trying, like, be as complimentary and as nice as you can, and then offer your insight in the tweets, and I think you'll be good. I mean, everybody if you're nice to people generally in the football world and the football Twitter world, they're going to be nice to you. And just develop your own thing. Like, be your own person, be as real as you can, and don't try to copy anybody else's stuff because you'll get caught in a minute.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's such a good point too about like not blocking people. Like I try to, I mean, I don't really there's not a lot that bothers me, and I don't get a lot of shit on Twitter anyways to block people, but there will occasionally, like, people will, if they're being rude to you, they'll be like, just block me already. I'm like, no, I'm not going to give you that satisfaction. Get out of here. Just, yeah, throw them on the mute list and let them scream into the wind. That's a good point too. But Chaps, final question here. It's the one I always ask people that everybody seems to kind of hate, but I do anyways. I always give the guest, one last shot at the floor before I rip it out from under you. So before we get out of here, the floor is yours to say literally whatever you want.
All right. Usually whenever somebody gives me an opportunity, I like to talk about veterans with PTSD or traumatic brain injury that are going through some stuff. If you're listening and going through some shit, don't hold it to yourself. Go out and get some help. You can contact Military One Source. You can contact me on Twitter at Uncle Chaps. My direct messages are open at any time. If you're struggling and you don't want to go get professional help, you just want to talk to somebody that's been there, hit me up and I'll be more than happy to talk to you. 22 veterans kill themselves every single day, and don't be one of those guys.
That is a good signing off point. Something that I totally agree with. So if you are one of those people, absolutely contact Chaps. If you're just a normal person going through struggles, hit me up too. I'm always happy to talk about that as well. But so that's one of the better final thoughts that we've had on this show. So for Chaps, I really want to thank everybody for listening, and thank you for coming on and sharing your perspective. It's a great honor to have Chaps on my podcast.
Yeah, thanks for the invite to talk about how you got your job in the football world when I didn't even have one.
But like you said, for season 2, maybe we'll have you on again and talk about your actual opportunity. I'm excited to hear more about that. But for everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. We're probably only have about 5 more episodes left of season 1 before we have to close up shop for the NFL to take my life away forever, or at least for the next few months. But continue to share and review the show, rate it on iTunes, this, that, and the other, so we get some momentum, which is real, by the way. Closing down here on the final stretch and everything, and we'll continue to do this thing up until the end. But so for Chaps, for me, thank you all for listening, and I hope you learned something today.